Jermichael, Laon, Hefna here. So I grew up in a log cabin. Early teen years, my parents, I think around 11 or 12 years old or something, my parents finally decided the log cabin needs siding, so they put siding around it so now you can't see it. But I thought it was pretty cool that it was a log cabin when we first moved there. It was in Bradford County. I was actually in the town of Camptown, or on the outskirts of it in the woods. So that's where I grew up, and then I joined the Navy when I graduated high school. After about a year, I got off the active duty part of it and started the Navy Reserve. I lived in Virginia Beach for about 3 years. Actually, in this house is where I lived for 3 years. And then I moved home to PA, and I met my wife, and we got married in 2 months. I kind of met her at church and started talking to her and texting her. I saw her once a week or so for about 2 months, and then we finally started dating, and we dated for almost 2 months, and then I asked her to marry her, and a week later we got married just in the court with my grandparents and my parents and a couple brothers and sisters. That's it for that. We've been married now for almost 2 years. It's been a great time. We've had some crazy adventures. So let's see what after we first got married, I started working at Cargill, and my wife started within a month of me starting. Now let me explain about Cargill. Cargill has many companies across the world, but we were working at one that specifically kills cows, processes them, and ships them out to grocery stores and restaurants and stuff. So it was called a meat packing plant for beef. So we worked on the kill floor, right where they killed them. It was pretty messy, They've got lots of stories from there. I can tell down the road, and made some good friends, made some enemies, how that is. But a long story short is my wife started having a lot of wrist troubles, working with a knife and stuff. So she started working at a daycare right there in Wyalusing, in the nearby town. So she's working at a daycare, taking care of babies and stuff. And she worked at Cargill for about 6 months and then worked at daycare for 6 months. I worked Cargill for about the whole year. And at the end of the year, it was like, all right, I was starting to get major carpal tunnel, The doctor did the tests of the nerves and the electric shocks through your hands, and he's like, look, you got carpal tunnel in both hands. We can do surgery, or you can do physical therapy and quit your job. So that was on like a Thursday or Friday. Sunday, I applied to crane operator school and I applied to crane operator school on Sunday, went to work on Monday, and quit my job. It's just that simple. Like, when my hands were that bad, I could barely sleep because they were so swollen and numb and tingling and burning all the time. And then work was like just viciously hard, So, and I can do a future video and talk about what caused my carpal tunnel at work and why it was so hard, but that'll be another video. So that happened. So within a month, then I got accepted the next day to the crane operator school. So I called the guy, we talked about it, we set up a date. My parents agreed to take out more money on their equity loan. It was about $22,500 they took out. We had a car ready to drive out to Wisconsin, the crane operator school. The day we were leaving for crane operator school, my dad I went to get in my car and back it up, and reverse blew on the transmission. So we're like, what? Oh man, it was crazy. So that same day, we drove to a used car place selling really cheap cars, Babcock's Garage in Rome, PA there. Great guy. Our family's bought many cars from him. Sells reliable, really cheap used cars. So we went there. He had a car for $1,600. He sold it to me. $1,650, I believe. And bought it right there. Drove home, packed it up, and drove to Wisconsin that day. Got there the next day on Sunday and started school Monday morning, October 1st, 2018. That was crazy adventure right there. Then at school, you know, I learned a ton about cranes. I got my crane licenses. I didn't get all the experience I need, but it was a huge foot in the door to lead to other jobs to come. I'll get to that in a second. Diana started working at Cargill. No, not Cargill. Cracker Barrel, sorry. She started working at Cracker Barrel about halfway through my schooling. School started October 1st, 2018, and I finished January 18th, 2019. And so she started working somewhere, end of November?
December.
The beginning of December?
Yeah.
Okay, so about the beginning of December. She worked for about 2 months there, roughly. I thought it was the end of November. Oh, it was a while ago. So, regardless. Granted, from the time I came home from Virginia Beach, I stopped working out and lifting weights. I probably went twice a month to the gym on average, I'd say. There was a few times for a week, I'd go a couple times, like 2 times a week, because my brothers would go with me, but then I'd just not go again for a long time. So for about a year and a half, we're coming up to the point where I started going back again, but at crane operating school, I had some buddies I wanted to lift with. We lifted a little bit starting out, and it kind of died out. You know, we probably lifted 3-4 times a week for about a month or so, and it kind of died out. I made some really good friends. Tad, I made a friend named Tad. I made a friend named Nate, and then I made a friend named George, and we're all great crane operators and great friends, and a lot of stories with them. Great guys. So at crane school then, finished up around January 18th, and praise the Lord, Tad got all 4 of us guys a job. Nate, George, Tad, and I he got us hired to a company that he was already part of down in Texas before we even finished school. So we all headed off as soon as I graduated school, January 18th. We all, my buddies, they finished at different weeks. Tad went home first, the next week Nate went home, and the week after George went home, and then the week after that I went home. Not home, but to Texas to our new job. So we all started within a week of each other, boom, 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 boom. And down in Texas, for the electric, IBEW Union, company was named Dacon. It was a good company, just hard for me and Diana because we had to live in a hotel all week and the weekend because we didn't have a home to go home to or whatnot. And so we would work and live in the hotel, but every week or every other week, we would get sent 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours to a new hotel. And so this went on for about 3.5, 4 months, and it was just like, I came home to PA to do one of my Navy drills on the weekend, and my brother-in-law gave me opportunity to get a job from another guy, and it just so I filled out the paperwork, got the job, called my old company Dacon, and said, hey, I gotta take this other job, one that's gonna keep me and Diana in the same spot and not moving all over. So we flew back to Texas, got in our car, packed our stuff up out of the hotel, took off, drove 4 days. We had an accident. We were driving every day, and it was just crazy, right? And you know, I think from Odessa, Texas to Wyalusing, PA is I want to say 1,800, 2,000 mile drive. So it's crazy drive. We didn't have cruise control, so that was really bad. So we made it all the way there. Thank the Lord, to Pennsylvania. But on our way to Pennsylvania, the last bit of light, I got a call from this guy that had the job for me, and he said, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know you didn't have a lot of crane operator experience. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I can't give you the job. I'm like, oh man, I just drove 4 days and quit my job to come to this job. So now what do I do? So I'm at the office in my hometown, Wyalusing, talking to the big boss, and I said, look, and he's like, well, we could give you a job as a rigger, but I don't have any crane operator jobs open right now, and honestly, you don't have much experience, which I'm like, yeah, but before I take a rigging job, let me see where my options are. You know, I've been applying to other companies currently. So I made a phone call to a crane operator job down in Norfolk, Virginia, here next to Virginia Beach. And the guy said, hey, look, if you can get on base, just drive down there and go on base and they'll probably give you the job. So I was like, great. So I literally, that day, I packed my stuff up from Pennsylvania the same day. We had just gotten in Wednesday night, late in the morning, and then woke up at noon. I went there to Wyalusing, talked to the company, like, look, hang on, and then this other job in Norfolk happened, and I was like, oh, sweet. So we packed our stuff that day, got in alignment for the accident we had on the way from Texas. So he realigned our tires and everything, which was a blessing. It was really cheap. Christensen Tires, shout out to them. They're great. And so we headed from that day, we drove all the way till 3 o'clock in the morning and got here in Virginia Beach. And my buddy, Bryce, this is his house right here. And, you know, I called him on the way there and said, hey, bro, can me and my wife stay at your place for a little while? I just got this job. And he's like, yeah, man, come on down, bro. And praise the Lord for that, because this is awesome. And we just showed up 3 o'clock in the morning, and he came down and unlocked the door for us, let us in. We fell asleep. I showed up to the job site on base the next day at noon, and I filled out some paperwork. They said, come back Monday with your paperwork form filled out. So I came back Monday. They said, okay, well, you got, because I had AT orders coming up in about a week and a half or so, or 2 weeks. And I said, look, I'm going to be active duty for 2 weeks because I'm a drilling reservist. So I got to do that, but then afterwards I can start on Monday. And they're like, all right, that's great. So they just put it off. That was a 4-week time. I had 2 weeks to do nothing, and then 2 weeks to do active duty, and then I can start the job, right? So lo and behold, I guess, thank the Lord, I was on Craigslist and looking for work, temporary work for 2 weeks until I started my active duty. I was on Craigslist, and I found this place called Laborers Finders, and I called him up and said, hey, you guys have this job opening. And he's like, yeah, we do job openings every day, new one, and you just come in, fill out the paperwork, and you can start working, and we pay you. And I was like, okay, I'll start. So the next day, I showed up to office, I filled out the paperwork. They said, okay, come back tomorrow, and we'll send you off to work. We'll find something for you to do. I showed up the next day. They sent me off to a job where I helped unload some materials for a company, and they paid me. Well, they didn't pay me. They filled out my ticket, and I took the ticket back to the office building. The office building paid me. The next day I showed up, and they had this awesome job where I went and worked refurbishing tractor trailer brake pads. And that was some great, awesome opportunity. I actually did that for the rest of the 2 weeks until my active duty started. So that was awesome. And then so I did my active duty, and on active duty, it was so cool. I came in, I was like, look, I got crane licenses and a CDL Class A and stuff. Can I work with your cranes? And they're like, yeah. So they worked me into that, and long story short, most of the 2 weeks I spent rigging or operating and working with the crane crew, which was awesome. So praise the Lord for that. I just that was a blessing. And then after the 2 weeks, the crane company that I originally came for, they said, hey, why don't you come up to DC to our main office and we'll give you an interview. So they interviewed me and finished the interview, and then I went outside, and within 5 minutes they called me back inside. I said, look, we'll give you the job, but we need you to stay here in DC for this week and train so that when you get to Norfolk, you can be ready to go. And I said, hey, that's awesome. I don't have much experience. If you guys are willing to offer me a job, that's awesome. Praise the Lord. So I started working for them. For a week, I trained under this guy named Bruce. He was awesome. He's been doing cranes for 40 years. He knows a lot of stuff, and he taught me a lot of cool stuff. So I did that, and then at the end of the week, I went home, and they're like, look, we want you to come back next week too and train again. And I was like, all right, man, hey, you're the boss, let's do it. So I came back the next week, and granted, both these weeks they paid for my hotel, so because that's a lot of money. I didn't have any money in the bank at the time, so they paid for my hotel, and then boom, the end of the week came. and they sent me home and said, all right, you're going to start Monday in Norfolk on base on the job site, but we're going to keep a guy there with you to shadow you and train you even more for another couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So, that's about it. Now I'm headed there. Tomorrow is Monday, and I start first day on the job. It's going to be cool. Hopefully I can do a short video on the job site or whatnot. I got to make sure it's okay with them first, though. But, yeah. So my bodybuilding part, that year and a half I took off. When I got here to Virginia, and when I first initially got here and worked for that brake pad company for 2 weeks, and then worked active duty for 2 weeks, and these last 2 weeks I've been up in DC. So these last 6 weeks I've been actively trying to go to the gym every day, lifting in a bodybuilding style I kind of got from Dorian Yates and Dave Palumbo. They have an awesome idea of how to do it in certain ways to get big. So hopefully you guys can watch my other videos in the future here about my bodybuilding stuff, and you can see me training with these 2 new guys that are new to it, and they'll be learning, and I'm gonna try to morph them into these monsters. It's gonna be cool. They're excited, and they're gonna be Lord willing on my video tomorrow for the gym. So, all right, signing out. Jermichael, Laon, Hefna, LHSHS. Live humble, smart, healthy, and strong. All right, talk to you later.